Hello, I'm Henry Keane and we are UATV English. We're here online to give you the Ukrainian perspective of reality of war. Watch in the episode. Zelenskyy asked for more international support from the United States. Russian ammunition depots destroyed and former chief of fleet eliminated. Evacuation of civilians in Sumy region. Please comment and subscribe to our channel while watching this very episode, as by doing so, you help us to fight Russian criminal aggression. And welcome to the News Pulse. Ukraine counts on the voice of American business in relations between Kyiv and Washington. President Zelenskyy said this at a meeting with representatives of American companies and entrepreneurs, members of the American Chamber of Commerce. The head of state stressed that Ukraine and the USA were systematically developing cooperation no matter what, from reconstruction to defense and technology. Zelenskyy noted that the great role of defense aid by the United States, American systems in Ukraine protect people's life and also businesses. Ukraine is ready to buy additional air defense systems from the United States, says the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, following a phone conversation with the chairman of the U.S. House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee, Brian Mast. Yermak emphasized that in times of massive Russian shelling, air defense is no less a matter of survival for millions of Ukrainians.
Main topic: defense support for Ukraine in general and strengthening our air defense in particular. Russia continues its massive missile attacks on our cities. At times like that, air defense systems are a matter of survival for millions of Ukrainians. We are ready to purchase additional systems from the United States as a strategic step to reinforce our protection. Andriy Yermak, head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The United States Department of Defense is preparing new options for military aid to Ukraine for President Donald Trump. This was stated by the Speaker of the Pentagon, Sean Parnell. According to him, the Defense Department is tirelessly working to achieve the end of the war unleashed by Russia against Ukraine. At the same time, the American Army's combat effectiveness and national security priorities are paramount.
I can't go in detail about what weapons were paused and when, and what we're providing and when. Ultimately, the president and the secretary will make those decisions about what happens with those weapon systems, obviously keeping in mind that the president was elected on an America First platform to put America first. And so our job as political appointees here in the Department of Defense is to provide the president a range of options to do just that.
Reports that Donald Trump has completely lifted sanctions against Russian banks and companies, in particular Defense expert, are not true. As simple as that. The Center for Countering Disinformation in the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine has said. In fact, the U.S. presidential decree of 30th of June this year is all about lifting of the Syrian sanctions list. All the restrictions that were imposed on Russia for the war against Ukraine and cooperation with Iran remain unchanged, the center underlines.
The sanctions imposed for participation in the war against Ukraine in cooperation with Iran remain unchanged. Some Russian companies were indeed removed from the Syrian sanctions list, but the vast majority of them remained on the Ukrainian and Iranian lists. Defense export and all other Russian business entities and individuals who support the war against Ukraine remain under U.S. sanctions. From the report of the Center for Countering Disinformation under the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine.
And while everyone seems quite busy with speculations on US sanctions on Russian export, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has commented on Russia's approach to peace talks.
We don't need some historian who tells us what it was like in year 1700. We need meaningful talks about the present. Ukrainians want a ceasefire and peace as soon as possible. And for that, the West must increase pressure on Moscow, in particular through sanctions and other leverage. Mark Rutte, NATO Secretary General, on Fox News.
Chinese companies do support Russia in the war against Ukraine, and that poses a serious threat to European security as a whole. This was stated by the head of the EU Diplomatic Service, Kaja Kallas, during a conversation with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Brussels during the 13th strategic dialogue between the European Union and China. A meeting designed to ease tensions between the old Europe and the Oriental Empire.
On Ukraine, the High Representative highlighted the serious threat Chinese companies' support for Russia's illegal war poses to European security. She urged China to immediately cease all material support that sustains Russia's military-industrial complex and called on China to back a full and unconditional ceasefire and a just and lasting peace in Ukraine grounded in full respect for the United Nations Charter. From the press message of the European Diplomacy Service.
Ukrainian drones targeted the Russian cities of Lipetsk and Yelets, where military airfield and a battery plant are located. In Yelets, a drone set one facility ablaze, while in Lipetsk, debris of another drone has hit a house, killing one person and injuring two more. Explosions and damage were also reported in other regions, including Voronezh and Kursk. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed to have shot down 69 Ukrainian drones in several areas in one night alone, although strangely, not all local governors confirmed this. Flight restrictions were imposed indeed in Saratov and Tambov regions of Russia. Well, that is what happens when you start a Kyiv in 3 days, war where you really can't finish it in 3 years. According to the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the Russian army launched more than 50 assault UAVs overnight, 40 of which were shot down. Steel strikes were indeed recorded and debris from downed drones also fell at an undisclosed locations. On 2nd of July, a powerful explosion was recorded in the town of Kharkiv, located in the Donetsk region and currently under the Russian occupation. The detonation was so intense that it caused mass fires, damage to nearby houses and a dense plume of smoke. Later, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces confirmed the strike. This strike follows a series of recent attacks in occupied territories, including the Ukrainian drones bombed an airfield in occupied Crimea, destroying the helicopters and air defense systems using domestically engineered Beaver UAV. Russian-occupied areas continue to be targeted, making it clear that no occupier can feel safe on Ukrainian soil, not a single one. And to add to the previous topic, the Deputy Chief of the Russian Navy, Major General Mikhail Gudkov, was killed in action during an operation in the Kursk region. It is reported by the governor of the Primorsky Krai, the far east region of Russia. It is not yet confirmed, but it's likely, and there is a chance that up to 20 high-ranking Russian officers did not survive the strike just as well. Gudkov previously headed the 155th Separate Marine Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces. Russian telegram channels claim that Gudkov died as a result of a strike on the command post in the village of Korinyevo. Well, 155th Brigade is the exact brigade that did all the terrible things like mass shootings in Bucha. So, as people say in Ukraine, may he never rest in peace. 1,023,000 soldiers lost the army of the Russian Federation during its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In the past day alone, we added 1,000 Russian invaders to the pile. Also, the Ukrainian defenders took out of service 1 tank, 5 armored vehicles and more than 20 Russian artillery systems. In addition, the Ukrainian armed forces shot down 85 drones yesterday and destroyed more than 100 units of different types of vehicles and special military equipment. Now to the frontline update that adds a bit to the previous topic. Over the past 24 hours, the defense forces eliminated more than 200 Russian occupiers in the district of Pokrovsk, an embattled city in Ukrainian Donbas Oblast. Also, according to the General Staff, the Ukrainian defenders in this area destroyed 13 motorbikes, 2 cannons, 6 drones, satellite communications terminals, a control center and 2 shelters of the Russian army personnel. A total of 140 combat clashes took place on the front the previous day. Increased use of motorbikes. Wow, what a shift in modern warfare indeed. Maybe Russians should be really thinking of using in actual cavalry on the battlefield. During the night, Russian assault drones targeted also the city of Odessa. One of the Shahids has hit a residential area, causing a fire on the upper floors. 5 people were injured. As local authorities report, rescuers evacuated 50 people from the house ablaze. Amongst them, luckily survived were 2 children. It is dangerous to stay at home at times of air raid alert, the city authorities say. Kherson, 2 people were wounded. Were just as well there. In the morning, the Russian military has hit the city with UAVs. A man and a woman received explosive injuries and shrapnel wounds. The Kherson Regional Military Administration confirms the injured were hospitalized. That's how almost every day in Ukraine actually passes by. Drone strikes and constant danger, fires, casualties, and uncertainty. Watch people being evacuated from the frontline communities in the Sumy region. These people, they lived normal, peaceful lives just a couple of years ago, and now they're forced to leave everything behind, literally, just to survive the Russian imperial aggression. Without further ado, watch it live in our report for you.
Valentina Mykolaievna, a resident of the village of Mykolaievka in Sumy region, was forced to flee her home. A 500-kilogram guided aerial bomb dropped by Russian forces created a 5-meter deep crater on her property. A second bomb nearly destroyed her neighbor's house.
Everyone's shocked we're still alive. If the neighbors had been home, they'd definitely be dead. The bomb smashed right into their house. They weren't there, but we're all in shock that we survived.
Civilians continue to evacuate from the frontline areas of Sumy region due to regular shelling by Russian forces.
Guided aerial bombs, drones, everything was falling, exploding in the air, shrapnel raining down. It was like some kind of Armageddon.
The National Police and rescuers handle the daily evacuation of civilians from Sumy region communities, using specialized transport for safety. They evacuate everyone who submits a request, including people with limited mobility. Volunteers also assist with the evacuation efforts.
As part of a consortium, several organizations evacuate people using armored vehicles. We operate in Sumy, Kharkiv, and Donetsk regions.
Evacuees are sent to a transit hub where social services provide humanitarian, medical, and psychological assistance, as well as help with necessary documentation.
We receive people evacuated in an organized manner, for example, by community transport, White Angels, the State Emergency Service, or volunteer teams. There are also those who evacuate on their own, using personal transport. They come to our transit center too, where they receive certificates of evacuee status, internally displaced person status, and are registered for financial aid.
Over the past week, nearly 500 people, including 21 children, have left the border communities of Sumy region. The transit hub helps them find temporary housing.
If someone needs more time, has lost documents, can't move further without them, or hasn't found a place to live, they can stay longer. There are cases where people stay with us for a month or two.
Since the start of the evacuation, according to the Sumy region military administration, over 60,000 residents have relocated to safer areas. Reported by Oleksiy Baranovsky, Viktor Holovko from Sumy region, UATV News.
Seems to be it for today. My name is Unikin, and we are News Pulse at UATV English. We thank you so very much for your time and attention. We appreciate that a lot as you help us to make Ukrainian voice to be heard worldwide. Please join our fight for freedom and sovereignty by subscribing to our channel. Hope to see you soon. Stay tuned and goodbye.